Good morning. We have three guests with us. Two of them are going to be speaking to you, Jim Gebhardt and Richard Lowenthal. They're both members of the Berean Class and are going to talk to her this morning about the Commons. Is it revitalization or is it redesign? Okay, the Commons Redesign Project, which I'm sure some of you already know about, but the rest of us will find out today. So welcome. And we also have Sterling Matheson, who is a member of the staff here at RUMC. Welcome, Sterling.
Hi, Gail.
Okay, Larry, you want to tell us about Wednesday night dinner?
I got it.
Good morning. Well, last Wednesday, we had 35 of our best friends together in Chicago's, and the owner chef was so kind that he gave us additional quantities of their house specialty, the honey croissants. So that was very pleasant. This week, we will be going to Mansell Road, Longhorn Steakhouse Restaurant, 5:30 Wednesday night.
Thanks, Larry. Okay, prayer request. I'd like to Margie Avery as she recovers from surgery. Special prayers for Betty Gay and her daughter Melissa as they move to Ohio to be near friends. Evelyn Hatfield, as I told you last week, she lost her brother Mark Watkins, so please keep Evelyn. Edna Smith as she recovers from blood clots, and Ann McNew is here with us today, so there's Ernie Robinson is relocated as we talked about last week, so continue to keep him in your person. Bonnie said she saw Ernie at the service last Sunday, so that was good. At Victory Rose, yes, right. Diane Stevens, as she begins radiation, excuse me, for breast cancer. And David Howe, a lot of you remember David. He was a former CUC president. His wife Peggy, they are down at MD Anderson in Houston, and David is battling prostate cancer, and so he's been down there for the last 9 weeks. So please keep David and Peggy in your prayers. And then Sherry Jorgensen, who is a volunteer for Job Networking Garage Sale, is now having chemo for a tumor. Continued prayer, excuse me, for Dick Anthony, Sister Backus, the Coonies, Mary Kay Mills, Stan Tomlinson, Vince and Donna's friend Susan. John Lemke's memorial service will be this Tuesday, and I think, Tom, you wanted to say a few words.
Really want to encourage you to come to John's memorial service on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. John doesn't have any family here, and it's going to be a small group. And I really feel like the CUC ought to support this. John was a member here for, well, I guess the last 2 years at least. He was limited in his mobility. That kept him from attending a lot. It also kept him from being as socially interactive as he would like to have been otherwise. And then most recently, he has been on Zoom just about every time, every Sunday, he participates. And I was active in working with John. He was a good friend for the last year and a half. And I found him to be a very sincere Christian, more so than it might have been immediately evident. So anyway, that's what I have to say. Michael Cromwell is doing the service, and that in itself will be interesting. I haven't heard Michael perform a memorial service or a funeral, so I'm looking forward to that part of it. But I hope you will come out. John Lemke's memorial on Tuesday. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Brett,
Yes.
Chris had given me a little update on his friend Susan. Is it all right if I talk to her?
Sure.
I'll just come up here because it's really amazing. Mike, or Vince said that he heard from his friend Susan, who we've been praying for. And she was at Mayo, and she said, in general, everything looks about the same as 7 weeks ago with minor growth in the lesions in her lungs and possibly a new small one. Pancreatic tumor mass itself appears a little smaller, no sign of metastasis. Her, some of the blood test work was very positive, no treatment in the meantime. It's really a miracle that she has accomplished this much. Class to be thanked for all the prayers, because she is sure that these prayers have been responsible for her improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Candy, what did you say that was?
That was Vince Gross, Vincent Donna's friend Susan Oots. I don't know how to say her last name.
Thanks. Okay, birthdays. I don't know, is PD and Shirley on Zoom today? But it's PD's birthday today, the 18th. Edna Smith on July the 20th. Kathy Carpenter on the 22nd. Linda Cantrell. Did I see Linda here? No. On the 22nd, and Betty Goss on July the 23rd. It's also Shirley and PD's anniversary tomorrow, 63 years. So okay, we're back into the Tuesday, Thursday meals. So remember that. Looks like a good menu for the 20th and the 22nd. So if you're have been getting your meals from the church, they start back. And please say hello to the CUC bellhops that bring out the food.
We appreciate it, Jim.
Yeah, I don't know tips, but I'll leave that up to you. Okay, things coming up on our calendar. Don't forget, August the 14th is a home stretch road race. And then our retreat is also in October, the 10th through the 12th. The Malone Dawson Golf Tournament on the 11th. And of course, our Christmas party on the 7th. Next Sunday, I encourage everyone to be here or be on Zoom, because Sandy is going to introduce, or the CUC nominating committee is going to introduce the next slate of officers. So I encourage you all to either be here or be on Zoom. So you'll find out who's going to be leading the class next year. Jeff, you have the prayer this morning, so please come up. And, aloha.
Well, good morning, and let's do it just a little bit better than that. How about aloha, kakiaka, and now we're going to puli, Hawaiian for prayer. Okay, so that's your Hawaiian language lesson that I like to give when I come up here this morning. It's truly great to see so many friends and members at CUC brave enough to walk in here and say hello to their neighbor once again. You know that we are more than halfway through 2021, and we've completed, get this, 20% of the 21st century. 20% of the 21st century is gone. And within another 80%, then 20th century Fox will have to be known as 22nd century Fox. There can be no doubt that time is a moving, things are a changing. And if I asked you today, how are you? Many of you would answer this question out of habit. Good. And you? That's how we answer that question. We never really stop to think about that question. Truthfully, after the pandemic, I think if you really thought about that question and I said, how are you? Some of you would say, Jeff, I'm tired of this. I'm sore, or even, Jeff, I've had it up to here. With that thought in mind, I'm going to ask you this morning to call on the greatest resource, one of the greatest resources God gave us when he put us on this earth, and that is the power of prayer. People forget the power of prayer. You hear people talk in CUC all the time about, well, when I needed the group prayed for us, the group prayed for us. It is amazing the power of prayer that we possess as individuals. With that thought in mind, I'm going to visit briefly on 3 Bible verses that I really like when it comes to prayer. By the way, my grandkids and my kids will tell you that no one eats in my house unless one basic rule is followed. The meal is blessed. If the meal is not blessed, no one eats. It's really simple. And I tell you, it's a rule that I enforce every Sunday when they come over. My theory is, hey, I'm buying the food, you're going to pray. All right, let's visit these 3 scriptures briefly. Join me in a sense of prayer. Our first scripture is from John 14:27. I am leaving you with a gift, peace of mind and heart. And the peace I give is the gift that the world cannot give. So don't be troubled or afraid. Think about that. What was Jesus really doing when he was talking to his disciples about him? They were people. They were freaking out, man. I mean, you see a guy walk on water, you tell me you're not going to freak out? You're going to freak out. So he gave them peace of mind and heart. The second this morning, focus on Philippians 4:6 and 7. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray for everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace guards our hearts and minds as we live in Christ Jesus. It's amazing, that power of prayer. And finally, Proverbs 16:3. Entrust your work to the Lord, and your planning will succeed. You might be hearing this saying, great, I'm off the hook. I know I'm going to be successful because Proverbs says as long as I believe in God, I'm going to be successful. Listen to it again. Entrust your work to the Lord, and your planning will succeed. Success requires planning on our part. So if you plan and do all your work with an attitude to please God, the efforts you make will be honored, and you will enjoy success. So one simple lesson this morning, and I ask this in prayer, in Jesus' name. Chill out. Take a breath. Do your part. Trust God. He'll do the rest. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. All right. I think, Richard, you're going to start us off and then introduce Jim.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, CUC. I'm Richard Lowenthal. I am not your speaker today. Jim is, fortunately. I just opened up my phone. I was going to look at the notes for what I was going to say today, and my phone won't open. So you're even more blessed than you thought you would be. Jeff, thank you for that prayer. that's right in keeping with what I wanted to say when we start the conversation today about where we're headed. We've been a society and a church where we've been looking backwards a lot lately. There's been a lot of negative things that have concerned us. Sometimes we had trouble trusting, sometimes we had trouble with hope. And what we're going to talk about, what Jim's going to talk about here tonight, is one thing, one element of a lot of things that we're going to do to not just switch on the old RUMC, but to build the new church. We're talking about moving forward. We're talking about vision of what we can look like as we move into this new post-pandemic time. So I love the whole thought about trusting, don't fear. The future is really good. I am extra excited about where Roswell United Methodist Church can and will head. So I think we have a lot to look forward to. And I want you guys today, while Jim is talking, think of your questions. If you have questions, ask them then if you want to. But certainly after Jim finishes, both of us would be here to answer any questions that you might have about the project that he's going to discuss with you, but as well as anything else that's going on in the church where we could possibly answer your questions from a trustee perspective. One last thought, just personally, I met a lot of people as I walked into the room today, and I can't tell you how honored I am to be here with you. It's going to be hard for me. You guys are leaders in this church. You've raised up everything that has happened in this church. I have learned from you guys, and it's so meaningful to see all of you here that have meant so much to me personally, and so much to me in my faith walk, and how much you've meant to this church. So I just want to say thank you, and I want to say thank you for letting us be here today. It truly is an honor for me personally, and I know it is for Jim as well. So without stopping the progress here, I'm going to introduce Jim. Jim is the chairman of our building committee that's going to be used, that's putting together the project that we're getting ready to talk about. And it's an exciting project for me. Just real briefly, one of the things that we need to do to continue to build the kingdom through this church, we need to be reaching out to our community. We're all about community and faith in this church now. And if we're going to grow our faith in this community, we have to be reaching out. We have to be inviting other people to be a part of what we're doing. One of those invitations is kind of a silent invitation. It's that invitation that comes when someone literally walks or drives by our church. If you've ever been here on a Monday morning, that's like Interstate 75 right out here, people cutting through, going through our campus. Oddly enough, there are people that think this is one church and that's another church back there. It's because our campus isn't terribly cohesive and it's not very inviting. It's hard to tell where the church starts and where it ends. What's the front door? What's the back door? So what we're trying to do is create a project here that opens this church up. Everything will open onto a central campus or a courtyard, as Jim will show you here in a few minutes. But what we want is a silent invitation to that person that might be driving to work on a Monday morning with some kind of tug on his heart to meet his creator. If he's driving by a church that says, we're here, we're open, we're inviting, it's safe, join us, just a visual impression, then that's the church we want to be. If we're the church that has grass growing up in our swing sets where the kids play, I think you're making a statement to people with children. That ministry is not important to us. Well, we don't want to be that church. So we want to be open. We want to be inviting. We want to move forward into the future where people will see this campus and want to be a part of what we do. After that, the ministries will take care of themselves. One last thought. Everything costs money. So Jim will get into that a little bit, but the money that will be spent on this project it's not a mutually exclusive game where there's ministries that get funded or there's a project that gets funded. They're actually very sympathetic, symbiotic. If we build a project and we bring in new people, then these ministries that have meant so much to all of us will be sustained. I think if we don't reach out, if we're not reaching into the community and asking people to join us, it's going to be hard to sustain those ministries that have meant so much to all of us so many times. So anyway, that's my thought. Feel free to ask questions. Jim is doing an incredibly good job. as your chairman of the building committee, and he's going to show you the presentation, but after he's finished, if you have questions in general, feel free to ask, okay? All right, thank you.
Good morning. Wow, this is a big group. Very impressive. And I've met a bunch of you before. Some of you may know me as the old car guy, and that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. But some of you don't know that I also design dealerships, car dealerships, truck dealerships, tractor dealerships. And I've done that for 35 years, and I've done 25,000 of them, which is a lot. And I guess that's how I got volunteered. I didn't mean to say it that way, but I got volunteered into the trustees and then selected to work on this committee. And it's been a really fun project. And I think you'll get a kick out of seeing what's here. I want to say that I've been here since 1976, so I beat Malone by a year. Not much. And I've been an usher since I joined. And I've been an usher since I was 10 years old in 2 other churches. So I finally figured out how to do that. I lost my job as an elevator operator. I forgot the route, so it was important. But anyway, we're going to walk through this now. As you'll see in these slides, in 2009, the piece of property that we're talking about had 2 houses on it, and for years, the church would have liked been able to buy that piece of property because it was right in the middle of our complex. And that property came up. And it was a difficult time, as often things are. It was a recession. And we had some other debt, but we did make the decision that night to buy the property. And we didn't know exactly how we were going to finish it off. So the most important thing is to buy it, which we did. And then we took down the houses and planted seed, and we've got a nice green space. Now these pictures that you're going to see are preliminary, but they'll give you an idea. So this is a Google Earth photograph taken about 50 miles in the air, and it's pretty neat how much detail you can get. Now this is a little closer to the ground. This is a drone photograph of 1,000 feet, the same space, but before the grass turned green. And this was a few months ago. But you can see pretty clearly at the top is the sanctuary, the bottom is the chapel building. And everybody can see that, okay? It gives you a pretty good idea. Now, we've got some pretty interesting thoughts on how this, there we go. Oh, go back one. Now, take a look at this. One of the things that this space doesn't provide right now, and you all know this, it doesn't have an easy way to get across it or around it. So this includes a 5-foot pathway that runs all the way around it. What you can't see too clearly is it'll have a covered pathway from this building to the sanctuary building so that you can walk between the 2 buildings and not get wet, which is a problem. I'm sure you've all experienced that before. At the lower section in the center, there will be an event area. So there'll be basically a pulpit there. There'll also be an opportunity to have an orchestra or choir out there. And if you can envision this, an Easter sunrise service in that area would put the sun behind the pastor's head. So we're going to kind of convert that space. And that center area, that's where the trailer was. Everybody remembers the trailer. Okay, well, that's what was there. And this is how that space will be improved. Let me walk through some of the other views. Right, this kind of, you start to see some of the things that can go on in there. By having this configuration, we can establish outside areas for groups to meet. One of the problems that we discovered during the COVID, we couldn't meet inside, we had to meet outside. We didn't have good outside spaces. The ones we did have in the Dodd out of the porches.
Oh, no, I lost it. How do I go back? How do I go back, honey? I lost it. How do I go back?
On Gmail.
It's informative, which is, it's okay. Here we go. This image. Is the one we want. Can they actually advance it remotely? I guess they can. All right, well. We'll get there in a second. Anyway, I'm going to take you through a series of views from different angles. Not only will there be visuals, but there'll also be the drone photos so that you'll be able to relate to it in direct imaging. All right. I guess that one is where we are. Oh,
I'm sorry, we're having a lot of trouble.
okay, well,
Go down.
there you go.
In there to presentation.
I can,
Could
I
you
can-
orient us on this? I'm having trouble.
right, okay, this is the porte cochere. Okay, it was that. Now we're in the lower corner, looking back. This is the large tree area. Okay, that's Pratt Street. Okay. The next slide. Please. All right. Here's the porte cochere. This is the primary sanctuary. That's Pratt Street. This is the new performance area. Here's the chapel building, and we're right here.
Jim, that performance area is going to be relieved from the
Right,
parking.
right. It's gonna be down about 3.5 feet from the parking lot and terraced down. There's about a 10-foot drop, if you look at it, between our property and that property. So we've got to find a way to step it down. But this gives you an idea of how the visibility will work from Pratt Street and then you come down this road. One of the best parts about it is when you come out of the sanctuary, this path has a very shallow grade and there's no steps. So if you're in a wheelchair, you can come all the way around and get up to that without having to traverse it any other way. So that was planned very carefully. Also, all around this area, there's a wall, and that's a seat wall. So that you'd be able to sit at any point around there, so that you could have areas like this, where you could have groups get together, or here or there. So it's going to make it a much more functional area.
Point out the covered area on the slide too, okay,
Okay,
when you get there.
okay. Well, I was going to say, I can't get there. All right. Well,
You should.
Should I be able to do this? Okay. There we go. Okay, that's that lower corner area. And that's the view from the intersection as you approach the sanctuary. And you can see it's going to be a very attractive thing to see. It's going to draw you visually into the space. Now, bear in mind, this is a building. It's not going to look like that, but it is a building that will draw your eye. And a new building. A new building. That's a new building. And the planning is being done on that right now. So that is just a placeholder. So don't think it's going to look exactly like that. But you can see what some of the landscaping is going to do. I like this view a lot. This is from Pratt Street. If you look down, you can see the pavilion on the far end. And that's what we're going to be looking for. There will be that building, which won't be quite that shape. You can see the chapel building, this building to the left, and you can see how that wall comes all the way around and goes up to that area.
Jim, is there going to be a tower there?
We don't know yet. We're hoping that we will be able to afford to do one, and it would look like the one on the Todd, on the far end of the Dodd building.
We're taking bids though.
Yeah, well, we've got to do that. Got to remember, this is not only the city of Roswell, but it's in the historic district, which has got a lot more requirements. So whatever we've got, it's got to look like something that belonged here.
Jim, tell them we're taking bids and it can be named after them if they'll build it.
I have a straight man that kind of helps with this. All right. Okay, now, yeah, this is what we have today. This is the Scout Hut. It has become a place for us to park golf carts and everything else. And we don't think about it because we see it every day. It's like everything else. And the new location would look like that. And you can see that this is now an event space If you can imagine that leveled back there, if we wanted to have a reunion, if we wanted to have a reception, if you wanted to have a small concert, it could all be done in that area. And we could put up a tent. There's a lot of things we could do with that space that we can't do with it right now.
It's probably not possible, but it sure would be nice to have a covered walkway from this building to the main church.
We haven't.
Could
We
you
haven't.
point it out on there?
Yeah.
What that would be?
You can see a little bit.
You can see a little of it. It starts right here
Okay.
and it looks just like the walkway that goes to the elevator. It's identical, you know where well, it's identical to that. It runs all the way down the side of the parking lot. So from this building to that building, you can't get wet, which is kind of nice. And we've heard that as a, you know, and I like the prayer. I want to make sure I mention the prayer. Your prayer talked about planning. A lot of planning has gone into this. We started in January and we've talked with a lot of experts to try and get to where we are. But nothing comes out right if you don't plan it.
Jim, the covered walkway is a relatively minor expense. Is that the kind of thing that we could move forward with as a first step?
Not really, because we've got so much construction that will be going on around it, all kinds of equipment and stuff. But it is something we want to address as quickly as we can. Let me, okay. So now you've seen an overview of, go ahead.
Just a question about that new building you showed there. Is that the new counseling center?
It's not the new counseling center. No, and we discussed that. But the counseling center needs to be where it is. We've talked to the people that meet in it. It needs to be in a remote area. And I could get in more detail about that maybe after the presentation, but that's the reason why it's not going to be the counseling center.
What is it gonna be?
Well, it's going to have opportunities for classrooms. The Bereans definitely are interested in being in part of that. There will be enough room for 4 major groups. And if you have any interest in that, that could be, you know, you could have a part of that building too. It's going to be about 2,400 square feet per floor. So it's about 4,500 square feet. It will have restrooms that will be directly accessible from the Commons, which we don't have, and that's a problem if you don't have that. So we're going to have them. The restrooms, both floors. It'll have a kitchen. Not a commercial kitchen, but it will have a kitchen and serving counters on both floors. So
Will it have an elevator?
if we go with a 2-story building, and there's questions about how much money we raise. If we have a 2-story building, we'll definitely have an elevator. Elevator's planned.
I hear what you're saying, and there's certainly a need for that kind of building, but no matter what they say, I have go to the Dodd consistently, and it's almost always empty. I know it's a sacred space for the young people and those sort of things, but the Dodd is space is way underused.
Well, I can't address that, but I can tell you that there's a chart of different groups that meet in the Dodd today, and the calendar is actually very full on that. And I think it's very possible that you won't see youth in there all the time. But again, I've got to focus on what we're talking about here right now, and that is a concern. Okay, so.
Jim, talk about the outdoor deck areas on the.
Right,
on
the building will have a wraparound porch on it so that you can meet outside, and that'll be a wraparound porch on 2 sides, overlooking the lower level trees and landscape area, and also looking back onto the Commons.
As a second presentation. You can do it.
Yeah, right. It will also have the walls, divider walls inside the building so that you can enlarge a space or reduce it. And they won't be the little kind of shabby things. It's going to be a full folding wall that will give you a sound separation and everything. So be able to carry on multiple functions.
There's a question. Is the green, is it gonna be real grass or is it gonna be artificial?
No, it's going to be grass. Definitely it's going to be grass.
How much is it increasing?
Yeah, we've redesigned this basic configuration because the pastor wanted to have, Tom wanted to have more space out there that was green. So we moved the path out 5 feet all the way around, and that increased the green space by 20%. So it's going to have a lot of green area. There'll be perimeter landscape, trees, bushes, shrubs, as many as we can save of the ones we've got and new ones. So it's going to be a big space.
Good question on utility, and if you go back to the park photo, are you planning any type of lighting so that we can use the facility even during twilight hours or street lighting?
There'll be multiple kinds of lighting involved. There'll be path lighting, so you can walk around it. There'll be a sufficient light to light the entire park area, the entire commons. When people are leaving, say a late concert, so they'll be able to see and not fall, that kind of thing. So there's multiple lighting situations, but again, that comes out a little further down the road. And I'll walk into the phases here, the steps, and that will help you understand.
Underground utility for power, for
Yeah.
VA, type like that.
The big deal here is, and I'll get into it in a minute, but well, water, groundwater, we have to bury 8-foot diameter perforated pipes all the way down through the center of that space. And that's required by the town. So that's a lot of excavation. Also, there's some remnants of the foundation of the other houses in there that will have to be. So when this gets started, you'll see a lot of what we call a big yellow out there, which is heavy equipment. You will see, excavators and graders and all kinds of things.
Let me add one note to what was asked. Yes, we're considering the open space to be used by multiple people at multiple times. And the other thought, we've had a number of discussions on having it lighted at night so the community can see it and know they can have access to it. So like Jim was saying, they considered, and we've already started addressing it with the cities, having good downlighting and path lighting.
Yeah, there's a couple philosophies about that. I'm sure you know what city light is like, okay? We'd like for it, if we have people in there and they don't want the light, they won't have the light, right? And we have path lights, which don't interfere with that, and have lights in the stairs so that you can't trip and after dark and that kind of thing. But then also have the ability to fully light the area.
Well, I thank you for all the work and effort, and I appreciate the fact that lighting, you can see the daytime picture. But if we visualize, and like Vince mentioned, if we visualize this unique as a central drawing point, the nighttime feel, the nighttime aura will be almost as important, if not more important, than the daytime aura.
I think you're absolutely right. That's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, so
Over
in,
here,
yes,
I have a
ma'am.
question. We first came to this church about 20 years ago, when the new renovation that included the elevator
Mhm.
to get you up. That was a mistake. And it doesn't work for people who are handicapped. You've got parking that goes down in the big parking lot,
Mhm.
single spaces that go way down there, not broad spaces that would make it close to the building. So if you park in that parking lot, you may be 50 feet down the way in a handicapped space. Then you've got to come back up, go across to the elevator, go up the elevator, go across this way, or go across this way. Which the simplest thing to have done to accommodate handicap is to put it in the north parking lot so that you could come straight down into the east entrance. Which
We talked about that this morning already.
I bet you did.
And the person that talked to me was very convincing.
Okay, but I'm not done.
Okay. We'll look into doing that. We'll put some up there.
I'm in the other half of this too. Assume that you are in this building in Sunday school. How are you gonna get from here to there? The golf carts were part of that, and they've not been used. They have been inadequately used from day one. So unless you have a sweet wife that can get in the car, drive you around there, get you in the door, go park the car, come back in the rain, get you out the door, go back to the parking place in the rain, come back, get the car, drive you back around. I think you need some real information from handicapped people.
I think that's a great idea. And that's what I was just going to suggest. You may join a committee without knowing it. So
I would be happy to do
let me
that.
ask you a
I'll be on
question.
it too.
If this new buildings between the chapel and the sanctuary were your destination and not this building,
Mhm.
would that facilitate transportation and travel a little bit better?
You might, it's closer on this.
That's
but-
one of the reasons why it was developed. And the fact that it's got ramps and they're very gradual ramps. It's a slow.
I hear you. We've just dealt with this for a number of years.
Right.
and I'm not.
Okay, one of the challenges that you have in a complex like this is when you have multiple grade changes, which you can see very easily. And that means you've got different floor levels. And this building was really not designed for handicap access to the rear. It never was, right? It's got access in here and you got the ability to go around. That building will be designed for, it has to be, because the laws have required it now. Sir.
Where are these scouts going to be? And have you considered renting the front parking lot up here to finance the building?
We can answer that. Richard?
Might want to use the microphone.
Lots of things that are expanding beyond our scope on this talk, but the answer is yes on parking. We have some people that are already paying us for the use of that parking lot from the city. Soon to be development on the corner of a hotel where they will be paying us for parking. So that's happening. What was the other question?
Scouts.
Oh, Scouts, good question. We've had a bit of a disconnect at RUMC between the Scout program and the church, meaning the youth ministry. We have requested, and I think we're moving into a situation now where Jason Scott, our youth minister, is going to be coordinating with the Scout program to a larger degree than they have in the past. I think it makes sense, logical sense, that a Scout program that will be displaced from the Scout hut move into the DOT. So
That's the plan at this point.
Right on, Rich.
They have activity areas which they don't have. There's been many good reasons for that to happen, but it hasn't in the past for other reasons. Okay, so let's talk about what this space is going to create. You've already seen the Scout hut will be removed, the grassy area will be built in that area. You're going to have to do it again.
Jim, the scouts are using the dot. Are they using it for their large meetings and their awards?
Yeah, it's just not formally,
Formal?
it's not formally done, and that's what will change. Okay, so what's happened since the last 90 days, 60 days? We had to consult with a group. There's 3 different creative organizations required to make this thing fly. We need a landscape architect. We need stormwater management. You heard me talk about that. That's engineering. And we need an architectural firm to work on the building. So we've also met with a representative from Roswell Planning and Zoning, and we've received some guidance on the historic district. All those things had to happen before we could even get started. Okay, we've started with the design development process. A typical, do we have any architects in the room so I don't embarrass myself? Okay, good. There's any architectural project requires basically 4 steps. One is the original design intent. That's how you get started. And it's sometimes the longest and most unpredictable part of the project. Then you do design intent drawings to get things going. Then you do design development drawings, which finalize things a little bit more. And then finally, when you're ready to build it, you do CDs or construction documents. So where we are in this process is we've done the design intent. You just saw it. You just saw what we hope to do. And now we had to interview architects, and interview a landscape architect, an engineering firm. So the three steps of this project, the hardscape and landscape. So the first thing you'll see is that space with the water management, digging it out, pouring the walls, and pouring the sidewalk and so on and so forth. That will take us through the first step. I don't want to call it phases because we'd like it all to happen at one time, but let's just look at what it's going to take and how we do it. The second step is the design of the new building, and that's still up in the air, not on the ground yet, and it'll take a little while before we get that done. And the third step is Scout Hut comes down, people move around, and then that is created into the events area. Now, one other thing that I forgot, somebody hasn't asked a question, but we'll ask it, about the pavilion, the existing pavilion that's down in that space. Our plan is to relocate the pavilion. Now, it's not going to go away. It's going to be relocated. We want to put it out near the garden. That's where it's a great spot. The property drops off there. We can set it up so it'll be great visibility, and that's where we think would be the best location. We have the architect looking at what it will require as far as footings and that kind of thing. But if you can move a house, we can move the pavilion. So that's the plan. Okay. So the committee was established, and of course, Tom is oversees the whole thing. I got drafted as the chair. Richard is the representative from the trustees, being the head of the trustees. And we've got Charles Curtis, who is a retired construction company owner, and he's part of Berean. Sorry about that. But anyway, he very knowledgeable guy, knows all the contractors in the area, familiar with the city. So he's a great advisor, and he will be our unpaid volunteer project manager that will actually oversee what's going on. Lori, of course, business manager, and one of your own right here. Let's hear it for Vince. Okay, we had a board stewards meeting, we had a charge conference, and we got approval to proceed with the design drawings. Now, the steps with the city, in order to get city approval, not to break the ground, just to get their approval, is a 90 to 120 day process. All kinds of meetings, all kinds of reviews, and all kinds of steps. Well, we're about a little past a third of the way through that right now. And there was a fee assigned to that, and I think I can cover that in here, but was about $125,000 to get that done. Now, that's what it takes. That's before you do a single thing. Let's get the approvals. Now, where did that money come from? That money came from the trustees' long-term maintenance account, okay? And it will be reimbursed into that account once the capital program goes forward. So it's basically borrowed so that we would be able to get started. The other thing is there's no commitment that's been made to build anything. You've got to understand that at this point, because we have to go through our capital campaign. We have to determine. Now, most of you don't know this, but our mortgage is paid off. How many people knew that? Okay, well, in this group, but the other groups didn't know that. Must have a lot of finance people in here. That's all I can say. But anyway, a church that doesn't have a mortgage is a rare thing. And I'll get into some of the numbers here. Okay. So these are the different approvals. I want you to know who the architectural firms and the different firms were. Here we go. You heard me mention about where the funds are coming from. What we're hoping to be able to walk you through this presentation is for you to understand what we're trying to do. So hopefully you'll leave this room knowing what the plan is, what we're trying to do. Hopefully you'll be able to get answers to your questions, which Richard and I will try our best to answer while we're in here. And also for you to be aware that the capital campaign is coming. It's being developed. You'll hear more about it, but you're early in the stages here, and you should just start to think about it. So next thing you'll hear from us is going to be what specifics. Now, just in round numbers, we think this is going to be a 3-year project, maybe 3.5-year project. It's going to take some time to do. We should be able to do the first step in a year or less if everything goes right. And we're taking all these steps right now through the approval process, so that's not going to be the delaying factor. The delaying factor might be the money, it might be the weather, that kind of thing. It's probably going to be somewhere around $1 million to $1.5 million to do phase one. That's what it's going to take. The building, depending on whether it's a single story or 2-story building, whether it's got a tower, doesn't have a tower, that's probably a $2 million deal. So by the end, the last thing to tear down the building and do the landscaping, it's probably $500,000. So we're talking about basically a $3.5 million at this point of estimated amount of money for the project. So you can see that's now we've got some people that have stepped up that have pledged to make some major donations, and we've been very successful at getting donations toward major projects in the past, that sanctuary, the Dodd. So we're hoping once people understand the benefit that this will bring for us all, and it will be an outreach that will start to pull people back into the church. So it won't be, when this opens, it won't be same old RUMC. It's going to look like a different place, and it'll be obvious to everybody. Anybody pulls in that driveway is going to see the sanctuary in all of its glory, the way it was originally designed. And if you drive down this side street, you'll be able to see this big inviting pathway surrounded event area. So that's about it for me. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can. And if I can't, I'll give it to Richard. Yes.
At the beginning of the presentation, I think I heard that there was confusion that there are 2 different churches.
Right.
Does the logo of the Chapel Roswell contribute to that?
It might. I don't know.
To me, it's a different brand.
Sure. Well, I think the attempt was to have a different brand, actually, a different kind of church service. And maybe there's some signage that we don't have that would be good to have. And the time to do that might be when this is cleared out so that you have better visibility. Yes, sir.
Hey, Jim, can I get 2 minutes of your time before you leave today? I
Sure.
want to bring you up to date on a project I've been working on for 19 months. I'm trying to get the front sign in the corner redone, and I've met with different people from the city because I've gotten so far as to get them to virtually approve taking the center part of our main sign out and doing a digital sign that
Sure.
a few people have approached it.
Here's the man.
I've spent 19 months on this so far.
I love that idea. That corner up there, to me, the way we currently have that corner designed, well, let me start by saying the opposite corner where the bank currently sits will be a hotel. That project's been approved. You'll see that starting relatively soon, I think. The city of Roswell is expanding towards us, whether you like it or not. The restaurant district, which is the place that you can go in a restaurant, you can buy an alcoholic drink and take it out of the restaurant and walk to another restaurant. That's being expanded down Magnolia to these restaurants over here. So the city is moving our direction. I personally, and this is pure personal opinion, that corner up there doesn't say, come down here and see us.
You can't even read it.
Right now, it says there's a wall here, stay out.
Right.
I really just think we're giving the wrong message now that the city has moved our way. I think originally it was perfectly placed. It was the right signage at the time, but the city's changing, and we want people to not only know about us here, even without inviting people, we have people walking on campus. They're reading books on the Commons even now. They're walking their dogs. They're not members of our church. They're our neighbors. If we open that area up, and I don't know what I'm talking about quite yet, but let me just say it out loud. If you had an archway there and a pathway from that downtown area leading our direction, that gives a different message than a brick wall saying, stay out.
That whole sign, I've spent 19 months on it. I've met with many people.
We need to talk about taking that forward.
Because we're one of the few churches around here that do not have modern signage.
Right.
You know, we talk about campus 1, campus 2, campus 3. That corner and I spent 42 years in advertising, marketing, and promotion. That corner is the most important corner to this whole campus.
You're speaking my language now. I think that's the gateway to our campus.
That's the key. That is the key component.
We need to keep talking about that.
Yes, sir. You.
Jim, I think one of the things you might want to mention about this overall concept stuff is we're in danger of losing a lot of beautiful trees. Is that incorrect?
Right, no, it's right. In fact, one of the things that had to be done right away is we had to have these trees inspected by an arborist and then the city arborist. And the trees that you would think would be specimen trees aren't. And the ones that you wouldn't think would be specimen trees are. And then, you know, the two giant trees over here are older in life and won't survive. But the ones that have been planted alongside the fence line here are younger trees and they're in really good shape. And we're going to try and relocate those trees. One of the things is if we take a tree down, we've got to plant at least 2 or 3 others. But we're not going to be able to wait 100 years for a tree to show up with a 4 foot or 5 foot diameter like those trees. So we have to make difficult choices about trees. The one that's closest to this building, when you go out there and see it, that's where that building will be. And it's also, as it turns out, a tree that's a damaged tree. So the town was okay with it. The ones along the fence line, that will be changed and we'll find other homes for those. But you're right, absolutely right. Yes, sir.
Will the houses between the church on this side of Mimosa and the parking lot on the corner be changed at all?
Those houses, well, one house is privately owned. It's not going anywhere. In fact, it's just been renovated and they did a really magnificent job on it if you look. Richard can talk briefly about the coffee house building.
Right. Okay, we're going to start a brand new talk now, okay? It's about the SEL house, the coffee house, the porch is what we're calling it now, has been a multifunction house, as you guys know very well. It's a historic home. There are parts of it that Barney tells me are dated back close to the Civil War, if not Civil War. So it's one of those structures that even if it fell down, the city would require us to rebuild it to its original state. So from a church standpoint, it's a beautiful building actually, but it's a liability for us right now. There's water coming into the basement through the basement windows. The brick on that windows is deteriorating. Water's coming in through the windows. So whether we like it or not, from our perspective as a church, that's going to have to be refurbed. We're going to do that work. It's just part of what we have to do to maintain our campus. So the building's going to be refurbed back to a usable condition. The real question is, what's that building's purpose? We've even had an offer within the last month to purchase that building by people that have the ability to purchase it for whatever price we put on it. We've had the same offer, by the way, for the corner parking lot. That it's super valuable property. The reality, though, is if we were to sell property in this church, we would no longer ever have a chance to have that property back. So I think from a trustee perspective, the interest in selling anything that we own is very, very low. We might work with people on how to use it better. I don't know how we'll do that. We could partner with developers possibly, but we're not going to sell property, at least in the short term. So the SEL coffee house porch will be refurbed. It will be reused. It's a great space. The outdoor space has been already updated, not finished with that yet. It's going to be a walkway coming off of Mimosa to the front door. So you can park in those parallel spots out on Mimosa. Easier access, but from the purpose of what's the house going to be used for, I'm not sure. But it's great meeting space, great small meeting space, and if the outside is refurbed to the point we're going to do it, it becomes another nice green space that Jim was talking about that we've lacked on this campus when we need to meet outside. So that's what that space will eventually turn into. But purpose, that's still probably somewhat up in the air. That answer the question?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk with you. And if you've got other questions, I'll be around. Feel free to ask Richard or me. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks both of you for answering our questions. And informally, after we dismiss, I'm sure you guys will stick around if you have some questions you want to ask. Church is going to be in about 12 minutes. So I know people want to get to the sanctuary. So have a great week and we'll see you next Sunday. I will be on Zoom, but Sandy will be here. And have a great week. Thanks.